Hello and welcome again to another video in the WFCC YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be covering another subtype of helpmates that is called twinning. But let's just recap. In the previous videos, we learned what a helpmate was and multi-solution helpmate. So a helpmate is a type of chess problem in which both sides cooperate in order to achieve the goal of checkmating black. Twinning is another way of giving variety to the play of a helpmate. So here, more than one problem is made from a single diagram by making a small change to it. Let's say in this diagram there is one solution or the number of intended solutions. Then we make a small change to it. Let's say moving the knight from d3 to d4, and then there is another solution or the number of intended solutions. Note that this should not include cooks because this will reduce the aestheticity of the problem. So there are different ways of making small changes. For example, moving a piece from one square to another, like I did, like moving the knight from d3 to d4. Adding or removing a piece, let's say we add a bishop on c5, or we remove the knight on d3. We could turn the board around, like turning the board 90 degrees clockwise or anti-clockwise or 180 degrees, etc. Or we could exchange two pieces on the board. Let's say, for example, we exchange the knight and the queen. So the knight exchanges spots. So there is one solution with the knight being on d3 and the queen being on a6. And then there's another solution with the queen being on d3 and the knight being on a6. We could substitute one type of piece for another. Let's say there are two knights on the board, and substitute knights to bishops would mean that in the twin, all of the knights would become bishops. Finally, we could mirror the board. For example, mirroring the board from a1 to h1 would mean this king would end up on h3, the white king will end up on b4, this knight on d3 will end up on e3, queen will end up on h6. So mirroring the board from between the D and the E lines. So let's look at Helpmating 2 by Henry Forsberg, published in 1935 in Revista Romana de Sa. So in this position, it's a Helpmating 2, so black, white mates. Now it has 5 twins. First of all, the diagram position. Then this queen becomes a rook. Then this queen becomes a bishop. A queen becomes a knight. And the queen becomes a pawn. Let's look at all of them. So in this position, in the diagram position, black plays queen to f6, knight to c5, queen to b2, and rook to a4 mates, because this king can't move anywhere as this knight is guarding the a4 and the b3 square. And this rook is of course guarding a2, a3 and b4. Now let's look at what happens if we look at twin B, which is exchanging the queen for the rook. Now the solution is rook to b6, rook to b1, rook to b3, rook to a1. Again, checkmate, as this knight covers b4 and b2 and this rook covers the whole of a5. Let's look at when there's a bishop on a6. Here the solution is bishop to c4, knight e1, bishop a2, and knight c2 mate. This time the knight is delivering the mate and the rook is guarding all of the important squares. Now a knight on a6. Well, here the solution is knight c5, knight to c1, knight to a4, and rook to b3 mate. Again, this king cannot move anywhere and the knight is guarding the b3 square. Finally, let's look at what happens if there's a pawn on a6. Well, then the solution is pawn to a5, rook to b3, king to a4, and knight c5 mate. So in this position, you could see how the a6 square in the twins was exchanged to 5 different pieces: the queen, rook, bishop, knight, and pawn. These type of twins are called Forsberg twins after the originator Henry Forsberg, as this was the first ever published of Helpmates with these type of twins. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll discuss duplexes.